Welcome back to the Tapes Archive podcast, where we release interviews that have never been heard before. In this episode, we have a new conversation. Our guest is Steve Sybesma, a longtime concert promoter and one of the partners in the creation of Deer Creek Music Center outside Indianapolis. Sybesma hopped on a call with Mark to tell him about his newly created Indiana Concert Archive website, IndianaRockHistory.com, and about his concert promotion journey. In the interview, Steve talks about how the Rolling Stones played a pivotal role in taking out his competitors, and why the Stones steered clear of Indiana for years, how much U2 and AC/DC got paid the first time they played a show in Indiana, and the fascinating history of Deer Creek Music Center. As always, we have music critic Mark Allen at the helm conducting the interview. Thanks for tuning in, and now it's time to open the vault.
Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. Why don't we start out by talking about the website? Where did the idea come from, and how long did it take you to put together?
I thought a good website for the history would be a great way to record things. A little bit of a labor of love. At this point now, there's over 3,500 shows, and it's still not complete.
I marvel at that list and just who played here and when and where. It's an amazing resource.
That's what I like about it. It's a resource, and it's something that if it's not recorded now, it's never going to happen.
You started, you said, in 1972. Was that Isaac Hayes? Do I remember that correctly, that was your first show?
That was Dave Lucas's show.
Oh, okay.
Dave Lucas and Joe Halderman started Sunshine Promotions just before I started promoting. I joined Dave and Joe in the summer of 1974. I kept all my calendars where I wrote notes in my calendars from 1972 on. And at Sunshine, we kept records because we were always competing with our other promoters. We'd always need to reference, well, we did Van Halen in Indianapolis and Evansville and Fort Wayne on these dates. It's kind of our date. Why would you give it to them? We're the history. We're the promoter of record with that artist. And we kept the record of the artist, of who was the opening act, what the attendance was, what the gross receipts were, and how much we paid the artist. So all that information is also in there, which is something that otherwise would never be known. It's interesting that our first Rolling Stones show, we paid them $50,000 in 1975. It's interesting that we paid AC/DC $250 for their first show at the Circle Theater with Foreigner was the headliner. And it's interesting that we paid U2 $2,000 in 1984 to open for the Jay Giles Band.
What was the biggest payout you ever had?
The biggest payout to an artist?
Yes, to an artist, yeah.
Well, I guess the first time I ever wrote a check to an artist for over $1 million was in 1989, Rolling Stones, and we had the two shows at the Hoosier? Yeah, Hoosier Dome.
The Hoosier Dome.
Back then, I was probably one of the biggest. Guarantees got bigger as the years went on.
Yeah. And so did concert ticket prices. I mean, you've got a lot of great pictures on the site of ads for tickets for concerts that were, $5. I can remember when the Eagles played at Deer Creek and charged $100, and everybody was just shocked at the idea of $100. And now, of course, it's routine to be over $100 for a ticket.
They were shocked, but they paid it.
1974, you started with Sunshine, or you and Dave got together and made Sunshine. Dave
and Joe Halderman was his partner.
Yeah.
1971 to like 81 or 82. So there were three of us until he left.
What happened to build Sunshine from 74 to 89?
We were aggressive. Dave, Joe, and I, the three of us, we were aggressive. Each of us had a relationship with different agents. We were not just doing shows in Indianapolis, but even when we started early, we were doing shows in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And there's always a lot of competition. But in the early years, the biggest competition, there was Belkin Productions coming in from Cleveland. There was another company out of Cleveland called, I love the name of this company, he always said, brought to you by a friend. So this company was called A Friend. And I love that name. Anyway, the guy's name was Roger Abramson. And out of Detroit was Bob Bagaris, which was Bamboo Productions. So those three promoters were coming into Indianapolis doing the big shows when we got started. So we had to fight against them. In late 74, we did 3 Bachman Turner Overdrive shows. Those 3 shows sold out, and we made about $20,000 a show. That was a lot of money in 1974. But we were building not just Indianapolis, but the other markets, so we were doing more and more shows, and that was a big boost to us, helped us, because Sunshine never had an investor. We started from ground zero, and none of us had any money, but each of us borrowed from the bank. Like I borrowed when I came in, it was my obligation to borrow from the bank personally $7,500 and put in the company. So each of us did that. And we'd make money, we'd lose money, we'd make money. We grew kind of little by little, but pretty fast. And in 1975, we booked the Rolling Stones. Now, there was an agent out of New York called Frank Barcelona, premier talent. Frank Barcelona put together kind of a network of promoters, of young promoters in America. So once we did the Stones in 75, the competition for us was not as tough. That really gave our company a boost.
So once you proved that you could do a big show, you were home or clear, not home free exactly, but
right.
it certainly made things easier.
But we had done other big shows before the Stones,
mm-hmm.
but the Stones were the biggest.
Right.
There was nobody bigger than the Rolling Stones in 1975. We booked the show at Indiana University, paid them $50,000 plus a percentage, and we sold out instantly, of course. And then they made another $43,000. In the same time period in 1975, we were able to book the Freedom Hall in Louisville. Only this time we had to pay them $100,000. And we said, no problem, because we knew it was an automatic sellout. We didn't really have the money. In those days, you were working with Frank Barcelona, and they believed in you, and they knew the show would sell out too. So we didn't have to come up with $100,000 in advance. The tickets sold out as fast as they could sell a hard ticket, at the box office. And it took about 4 hours, I think, to sell out the show then.
Is it true that they were angry that the RCA Dome had not sold out and promised they would not come back?
That is true. They were really upset. The show did not do well, and the show only did about 25,000 people. I don't have the thing, but it was.
No, that's my recollection as well. Yeah. And what I do remember is you put it on sale pretty late it was a summer show, and there were so many shows that summer that I think people were just tapped out. So getting back to the website, you've made it so that it's not just a place to go and read, but it's an interactive site. Can you talk a little bit about your thinking on that and what you're hoping to get?
It's interactive because people can tell stories too. They can say, I went to the David Bowie concert and I met my wife there, and we're still married,
Yeah.
Or they can talk about they got to meet Eddie Van Halen and went backstage, and they can tell their stories because each listings has a blog on there where you can tell your story. And when you go into the more info section of each thing, there's I'm trying to collect the backstage passes, the tickets, the posters, and photographs.
Let's talk a bit about Deer Creek. Indianapolis is was a pretty conservative city, and I always had the impression, Deer Creek was a bit of a fight, right, to get it built. The Grateful Dead coming was a bit of a fight to get them the permission to have them here. Talk about how you navigate the political and personal situations to get things done here.
Getting Deer Creek done, it took us 3 years to find the site, but let me tell you the full history. It was 1978. Dave and Joe and I said, these amphitheaters are doing pretty well in other cities. Detroit, Pine Knob does huge business. And so Dave and I went to Detroit in 1978 to look at Pine Knob. We were disappointed because we saw how much it would cost to build an amphitheater. It was a major undertaking. And in 1978, there was no way we could come up with $7 or $8 or $10 million to build an amphitheater. So we came back and we made a deal with the Sports Center, and we started doing a summer concert series at the Indianapolis Sports Center. Did that for 10 years, I think, before Deer Creek happened. And we started looking for sites to build Deer Creek, and we looked at Westfield, Indiana, I think was our first location. And we'd have these zoning meetings, and we'd have these meetings with, the local people. And it's like trying to build a waste treatment plant in the middle of a shopping center or something, because nobody wanted it near them. So we looked at Westfield first, and we were shot down there. Then we went northwest Indianapolis, and we were kicked out of there pretty quickly. And then we went to downtown. And we thought we were going to get it done downtown at White River State Park. And we got shot down there. And then when we found the Noblesville site, we found 200 acres there, and it wasn't zoned. It wasn't like we had to get new zoning for what we wanted to do. There was no zoning. It was just farmland. And I always remember learned a good lesson then. We went to buy the 200 acres, and the guy had it for sale for $1,800 an acre, and made a big mistake. We offered him what he had asked. If we'd offered him $1,400 an acre, we probably would have bought it for $1,600 an acre. But we offered to buy it for $1,800 an acre, and he said, "No." He said, "I think I want $5,000 an acre." It cost us $1 million. But anyway, it was a lesson learned that, we had a big fight in Noblesville, too. That took maybe 9 months or a year. I can't remember, 6 months. I do have all those records, but it was a big fight, and we had a lot of commission meetings, and we finally got it passed. All the neighbors at Deer Creek, they thought we were going to drive their property values down. Nobody wanted to live out there, which is absolutely the opposite of what happened. The property values went through the roof. They built everything up around there, and it was a great thing for Noblesville and the area surrounding the amphitheater.
And then you did get the White River State Park project done eventually. Right?
Yeah, Dave got that done after. He got that done in 2004. Yeah, because I quit in 2000.
For any particular reason?
I guess I was been doing it for, almost 30 years. And we were working harder and harder. More like I was more independent, and the corporate thing wasn't exactly what I liked. But maybe it was a mistake, but it's what I did, and I can't look back. But when we sold the company, I stayed 3 years after we sold it. So we had made a lot of money, and I wanted to go out and see the world and enjoy it. So I traveled around the world for a few years after I retired.
When you did sell it was mostly because everybody was selling out, right? I mean, was it SFX that came along and bought everything up?
The business was getting tougher, and there was some consolidation that was going to happen. If we stayed independent, we might lose on the deal. The guy that bought was a guy named Bob Sillerman, and I had known him for many years. And then he bought WFDQ Radio right before he bought us, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, Bob, do you want to, when you come into town, let's go out to dinner or something?" And he said, "Well, I'm probably not going to come into town," but he said, I just bought Delsner Slater, which is his first purchase, the New York promoter," and he said, "Would you be interested in selling your business?" And I said, "For enough money, sure." For the right amount of money, anything's for sale. And we had tried to go public before that, because we were growing and expanding, and we built the amphitheater in Columbus, Ohio, and we refurbished the theater in Louisville, and then we were doing the Murat Theater at the same time. So we tried to go public, and that failed, and that was a pretty brutal year for us because it's expensive to do and it didn't work. So
2 other things. One is, clearly your high school guidance counselor did not tell you that you should go into concert promotions. How did you know to do this?
Well, I didn't know, and I was 21. I was a heavy equipment operator. I worked construction, running bulldozer on interstate highways and stuff. I lived in a house with 3 guys in 1971, and one of them was a record rep. One of them was a DJ for WIFE radio, and the other guy, Harry, was an agent for Go-Go Girls. And one day, Harry and I were sitting around saying, "Why don't we do a rock concert?" And that's how I got into it, and it sounded great, and started doing it.
And the last thing I want to ask you is just let's go back to the website. What are you hoping will come out of this?
I'm not really sure. I think I just like to see it become a good history that's there and where people can contribute to it and make it more complete, and then it's always there as a reference. I just didn't want the history to be lost, and all this history that we had, I just thought it was better shared than it was just in my books and my boxes and stuff that might eventually be gone forever. I am writing a book. I think I have a pretty interesting book to write, and I'm working on that right now.
When do you hope to have that out?
I think it's going to take me a while, maybe 9 months to a year.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much. This has been fun. I learned a lot, and there's more to learn. So it'll be fun to watch the website develop and see what comes of it and what people's memories are.
Good to talk to you, Mark, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. And let's just keep in touch.
All right. Take care. We'll talk again.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Tapes Archive podcast. Please remember you can always find more information about the show and the individual episodes at our website, thetapesarchive.com. Until next time, the vault is closed.